Okay, so the beginning of the week started off with me looking at a Matt Dillahunty video critiquing antinatalism and why antinatalism has holes in it. So that was fine. I had my objections. I don't think I agree. In fact, I don't agree with Matt Dillahunty on some major points that he's made. But I think the biggest shock came to me when I posted this same video, his critique of antinatalism, on an atheist site, expecting that somebody would say, you know what, that logic is off, that rationale is off. And I was surprised to see that members of the atheist community came rushing in, basically saying, dude, do you know who this is? Have you seen his work? And somebody else commented right after that, I don't think he knows who this guy is. And I'm like, wow. I thought, in atheism, not that atheism has a doctrine or anything like that, but atheists tend to have more rational, logical minds, and everything is viewed with some level of skepticism, and everything needs to be proven and put through the grinder, and believed that way. But this cock worshipping thing was just out of the blue for me. I've never seen that in the atheist community before. I mean, maybe once, excuse me, where I worded a sentence strangely and somebody like jumped down my throat for it. That was like another shock as well. Like there's almost like this robotic kind of, offensive position that a lot of atheists take when it comes to being exacting and stuff. So anyway, that's what I was saying with Matt Dillahunty's video. I was saying that, when he was talking about asymmetry and what pleasure and pain is, and any combination of those two, he seems to be a little bit off. And yeah, these people just jumped down my throat. Now, to be fair, someone did come to my defense and say, guys, like, you can't believe somebody automatically just because of who they are. That's silly. That's nonsense. You look at their argument. You look at their argument, and does it make sense to you? Does it make sense with other evidence, with what you've read, things like that? So somebody came to my defense, and then the last comment on that thread, which I just didn't really comment much on because I figured, the cock worshipping thing, I was not going to get into the middle of that and get into some big argument. But the last comment was basically saying that, well, antinatalism is just made up shit, and you can make any kind of shit up and then just say anything about anything. So that was weird. She said, specifically speaking, I think it was a he or a she, I don't know, said that basically antinatalism is implausible. It is implausible. But think about that, right? You're talking to an atheist community in a world where 84% of the world is religious, and atheism and the nuns make up about 20%. 26% or 16%. So okay, to be fair, I think maybe 100% atheists in the world is maybe a little bit more plausible than 100% antinatalist in the world. But I mean, I don't think that's a far cry or a big jump between how implausible one is over the other. I mean, I don't think it is. You know what I mean? And especially these days, ever since we've kind of gotten over the whole new atheism thing, and we have new voices coming in through the IDW, so like Brett Weinstein and Richard Dawkins, kind of when he's talking about his meme stuff. Although he doesn't like to call religion a very evolutionary based thing, but Brett Weinstein does. And then you have other people that you see on Dave Rubin's show all the time talking about how atheists are finally coming around and they're finally getting the religious thing now. They're finally understanding why people believe and have faith. So I do, maybe one step forward, two steps back, but I don't know. I mean, the implausibility argument just seems kind of really weird to me. But I have to say that Benatar in his book also mentioned that he himself doesn't, the most famous proponent of antinatalism says that he himself doesn't see this as something that's going to run. It's just implausible. But it's not to say that the logic isn't sound. So that brings me to Matt Dillahunty's video talking about suffering and pleasure. So, he kind of tries to create this kind of construct in which pleasure and pain are intricately kind of intertwined, and it's really up to the judgment of anybody experiencing pain and pleasure in whatever ratio and in whatever sequence. It's really up to them to decide anything. But what he doesn't understand, and what he said earlier in his video before he got to that, is basically the point of antinatalism is there's a zero when it comes to existence. There's a figure zero when it comes to existence. So it doesn't matter how much suffering and pain is combined in whatever way. If nobody is there to experience pain and pleasure in whatever combination, nobody's there, and nobody can't desire anything or want anything or even consent to coming into being. There's no consent there, and I think that's what Matt Dillahunty is missing as well. And then he goes on about basically, we could get to a point where we've solved all of the world's problems. And we eliminate suffering and all that stuff. I don't think he didn't actually say that, so I'm not quoting him on that. But he said that we could get to a position where we can solve the world's problems. What exactly is he talking about? Solving suffering? I mean, if you're talking about solving suffering, you're talking about radically altering what it is to be human. And is that what we're talking about? Because that's years and years and years into the future, thousands of years into the future. You're talking about something transhumanist, as I keep saying. You can't get away from suffering without getting away from being human. And who knows, maybe that point, that whatever that thing we come up with that can't experience suffering, aside from not being able to be calling it human anymore, imagine the problems that could come out of that. I think we're still too very immature when it comes to solving suffering in the human race. And I mean, there's plenty of it. So, and also that's another great point that Benatar makes. We're talking about the suffering that is inherent in coming into existence. We have 7 billion examples of people that suffer at varying intensities, varying combinations of this and that, like different types of suffering, etc., etc. But it is certain that we will suffer when we come into existence. We know that that's the nature of being human. So there's no argument there. So as implausible as it is, I think antinatalism makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of logical sense, and whether we follow that logic or rationale or anything like that, it's maybe we leave that up to the atheist to figure out, right? maybe antinatalists just basically say like, okay, well this is what it is. I mean, you can't refute that. So you, with all your belief in non-belief, then go solve it. Now, I'm joking too, right? Because I'm an atheist, so I mean, I do understand the need for the balance we strike between the things we infer and the things we know. And I read The End of Fate by Sam Harris. So belief is not something inhuman. Belief is very tied to us. It's inside of us, right? So I mean, but I mean, atheists, he's atheists. Going back to this again, but I mean, atheists that say things like, well, antinatalism is just implausible. It's as implausible as basically saying, atheists are going to someday eliminate the need for belief. Let's forget religion and just say belief, right? So, anyway, that's it. Bye.